Okay, so this is No Holds Barred vlog that you're watching right now. Please visit the blog website yourworldinhardcopy.blogspot.com, which will be providing the link below. And it's June 2011, and we're going to go ahead and talk about some pro wrestling topics which have been on our minds lately. So first one I want to bring up is WWE versus TNA. And one thing that I did find that was interesting was Kurt Angle's interview about like 3 years ago on WrestleCast. We'll also provide a link for that in case you want to listen to it. It's pretty good. And he was talking about how TNA was the better brand or show because WWE isn't really pushing their younger guys and just being too lenient on trying to get the older guys, you know, living in the past and getting them to take over the job and stuff like that. So, yeah, what do you think about that?
To an extent, I do agree with Kurt Angle. WWE has not been pushing their new talent the way they properly should. They have been focusing on keeping the older talent kind of at the top. People like The Undertaker, Kane, Big Show. John Cena is still fairly young, but to an extent, John Cena, he's been around for a while. I mean, it's time that, you know, let somebody else come in. Let the Sheamuses take over. Let the Daniel Bryans get their shot. Let the Dolph Zigglers start rising.
Right. Another interesting thing about Dolph Ziggler is you mentioned before, like when we were talking before, that he's getting pushed back down to mid-card. But he was really, like, getting pushed ridiculously with Vicky Guerrero.
Ziggler was basically... I think it may have been more of the case of he was on SmackDown. SmackDown really was running low on heels, so they needed to push somebody to the moon. And Ziggler, you know, I mean, look at the last time he first came in. After the Kerwin White thing with Chavo, he came in as part of the Spirit Squad, and they rolled with Vince McMahon. So I think he's always kind of been in that spot where he knows the right people, but he's not getting properly used the way he should. I mean, they even changed his hair color, and look at it. It's 2 weeks later, and he's already back to being a blonde.
I know. I really liked that new look, too.
It was pretty nice.
It was really nice, yeah. So, do you think that TNA is also sort of doing the same thing, too?
TNA, actually, yeah. You know, apparently, I guess you were saying these were made about 3 years into Kurt Angle's tenure with TNA.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's been a little bit longer now. But now TNA is the same thing ever since the Hogan administration has come in. Hogan at first had terrible old school athletes in there and were pushing them to the moon, like the Nasty Boys, and they're awful.
Yeah.
Actually, speaking of which, something that we didn't have planned on here, but a comment I read about, Brian Knobbs dissing Randy Savage the day of his death at a wrestling show.
Know about him?
He knew about it.
What the hell?
X-Pac was there and said, you know, he actually freaked out and told Hogan, you need to get this idiot under control because he knows Hogan's the only person that actually can talk sense into Knobs. But, you know, I really wish Brian Knobbs would hear this because I would like to say you, sir, are pretty much a jackass. And, you know, you're never going to be a Randy Savage. But anyways, TNA, ever since Hogan, has been pushing terrible talent. You know, I mean, things are brightening up a little bit now, but really, I mean, their main top stars are still Sting. Sting's heyday has been, it's come and it's gone, and gone, and gone, and still gone. The man is not the Sting of old. Ken Anderson is more of the old Sting than Sting currently. Yeah. But I want to let you get something in here, so.
As far as WWE goes, I do see a lot. I do agree with you that it is Angle when he's talking about getting, trying to push the younger guys, but just doesn't really work out so well. Like, for example, I bet you remember, like, last year when Sheamus was WWE champion, you know. And
Sheamus was on top of the world.
Yeah, he was, and it was just a push because I think, like, Triple H pulled him in.
Yep.
Or something like that.
They were workout buddies.
Yeah, so, all right. He was up there for a while. Then now he's getting pushed back to mid-card again. Then you see Dolph Ziggler, like we mentioned before. Like, it's funny because, like, I have to talk about this now because I really like what Zack Ryder's doing with his YouTube. show, Z True Long Island Story. It's so funny. It's great. And Cena, I've heard recently through a rumor that he like went in and tried to pull WWE to push Zack Ryder on TV. And yeah, you saw it on last week actually, where he was just sort of on there when Cena was like walking out and doing some footage there. So, you know, it's sad that like they really try to get these guys pushed forward, but at the same time, it feels like halfway through they sort of give up because they're like thinking that, oh, we're like really living in the past. Because when you talk to people about if they like wrestling, they said, yeah, I like it, you know, years ago because, you know, it was like hardcore then and stuff like that. So they're trying to get that audience back, I think, by just having like these people from the Golden Age, from the Attitude Era come back. And I mean, you know, the whole thing with The Rock and Cena already announced for WrestleMania. And I mean, he's not even around.
No, he isn't. I will be the first to admit, I agree with you on that, but I've already made plans to try to find boarding for WrestleMania.
Oh, yeah, it's working. It's working.
It's still going to be the big match of the decade. It's going to be Hogan versus Rock. It's going to be those two epic things that were supposed to come together that you never would imagine would, and now you finally have it.
Yeah.
But back to Kurt Angle for a second. Kurt Angle also at the same time though apparently has been fighting tooth and nail with TNA management to stop dicking around with Samoa Joe and get him back in the spotlight, because even Kurt Angle says you're misusing this talent and you're missing out really big.
No.
So, you know, props to Kurt Angle for that. You know, he's willing to still share his spot. But, I mean, at the same time, I'm pretty sure he's just one of those other guys still holding on to his spot, unfortunately, not willing to give it up. But
another thing about, like, TNA, which I'm finding is a little bit interesting about, like, how they're using their younger guys. Another thing that Kurt Angle said on that same podcast I was talking about before was that he was saying how, just to get off a little bit topic, they try to get these younger guys pushed because Dixie Carter wanted to get their names bigger than the company. And quoting him yet again, he was saying that WWE, like with Vince McMahon, the brand is his baby. So he doesn't really want the talent to get bigger than the name and stuff like that. And, you know, even though I can understand how that's, like, gaining popularity, that, like, especially when you go to house shows, you want to see, like, AJ Styles. You want to see Kazarian because you know their names. But, like, as far as, like, you know, trying to have that same mindset and trying to push the younger guys up, it's not working right now because, you know, the Hogan administration's, like, in the way of that. And, you know, they're, like, bringing back Sting and so forth. And even though they're, like, trying to get the name bigger than the company, it's still an issue where you just, like, have to rely on, like, you know, all these people to come back. I mean, that's basically why they, like, called back all those people. Like, you know, everyone thought that Goldberg was coming back, and then it ended up being, like, Angle. So,
I will go on the record as to state now, in case if further episodes have been made and will be made, Bill Goldberg is the most overrated, most overhyped, most overused, and most overpaid talent known to the wrestling world. Bill Goldberg is not talented. He is not safe, and I mean, come on. He kicked Bret Hart square in the head and concussed him and practically almost knocked him out. He is technically almost responsible for knocking Bret Hart out of the wrestling industry. Bill Goldberg by no means deserves to be on any top 50, top 100, top 200, top 1,000 list ever, because he's just another big meathead that doesn't know what he's doing.
All right. So conclusion to that is that we think that, yes, younger guys are getting pushed, but there seems to be too much of a hold on the older superstars.
Are they getting pushed? Yes. Are they getting pushed enough? No.